Welcome to Next to Madison, a podcast to help you live your best life.
Hey, welcome back to another episode of Next to Madison. On today's episode, we are talking about confidence. It is one of the most important things you can have, and we should all have it, but somehow during our lives, we ran into people and situations that really kind of maybe dimmed our light and affected our self-confidence. And it's really our job to kind of break away from that and build up that confidence, because once you reach that confidence level, magic just happens. The things that used to bother you don't bother you as much. Let's face it, there's always going to be people or situations that are not kind to us or don't work in our favor. But with confidence, you're able to deal with those things. And so the guest I have on today to talk about this, who is really a guru in this area and has written books, she is a best-selling author, a keynote speaker, a TEDx speaker, and so much more. And she really focuses on building your confidence so you can get what you want out of life, and especially out of business. So if you're feeling a little not confident, well, make sure you listen to this entire episode. And really, this episode is for everybody. So please share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to us on any of the podcast platforms, especially Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And don't forget to leave a rating and a review. It helps us out greatly. Would be very appreciative. And also leave your feedback. Let us know kind of, what type of guest you'd like to see on the show, what guest you would like to see back on the show, what topics you want to see, all that good stuff. And we do read those, and we'll be looking at those, and also maybe even reading some that are funny, or not, or just great. So please rate, review, subscribe. I would love you. Thank you so much for doing that. And with that being said, I'd like to welcome my guest, Heather Monahan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. So I have talked you up in the intro. I'm so excited that you are here. We're going to talk about confidence, and you had recently kind of written a book, and you have a program that focuses on this. So what I'd really like to kind of start with was, how did you become this amazing, confident woman?
Really from a series of low moments and challenges in my personal life and my career, those moments allowed me to begin to look at where I was taking confidence from, whether it be from a paycheck or a job title, and really start to reassess, what does confidence really look like? Where does it really come from?
Right. And that's so important. So, because it's funny. I mean, it's not funny, but we're all born with confidence, and we have everything we kind of need as far as like our self-esteem. And as we go along in life, especially in childhood, and especially, with certain people with their families, it just gets crushed. And so what are some of your kind of tips that you would have to help build that confidence back up?
Yeah, my number one tip is fire your villains. If you've got someone negative around you that's in your circle, whether it be your work circle, peer circle, or personal life, getting rid of villains from your life will completely change the way you think about yourself, what your potential is, the actions that you take, and the tape and narrative that you're running to yourself. That's
Okay.
definitely one of the most important things that you can do.
And so what would be the best way to kind of get rid of those villains? Because sometimes it can be hard for people to say, okay, my friend X, I just don't feel like she supports me, or he supports me, and I feel kind of just down when I'm around them, but I don't want to hurt their feelings, or I don't know how to properly get out of this situation.
Well, there's plenty of things you can do, right? I mean, you need to do what's most important and what's best for you. So that can be ending friendships. That can be not being available to spend time with anybody anymore. And that's your choice. You need to help prop yourself up to take on life and a global pandemic and whatever else you have coming at you. And life is a lot easier to live when you don't have negative people around you trying to pull you down. So I'm all for fire your villains, which means this isn't working out for me and I'm not going to have time or be available to spend time with you. Boom, boom, done. That's it. And moving on. Some people don't want to do that. They're afraid of doing that. You need to create boundaries then. And that's really, creating a barrier to someone to say, when you speak to me like this, it really doesn't work for me. I know in the past I allowed it to happen. However, today's a new day and moving forward, you can't speak to me like that, or we're not going to be able to spend time together, and laying that groundwork and then having to hold those people accountable to ensure that you're respected.
No, that's really well said. And it seems like it would be something that you could just do, but I guess it would take some time. But I think you have to be willing to maybe lose friends to have those boundaries set.
But the thing is, they're not really your friends if they're people who, that's where the big misnomer is people can be in your circle, but not in your corner. And it's all about identifying who are the people in your corner so you can keep them and stay with them. And those are your ride or die. But the rest are fringe. You don't need those people if they're just because they're in proximity to you doesn't mean they should get your time.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely important too. And what do you think as far as, as you become older and you're an adult, it becomes harder to get close to people and make friends as they're so busy. So do you have any tips about, creating positive friendships as you get older?
Well, the most important thing is showing up as the real version of yourself, right? If you're showing up as a watered down version of yourself, or trying to make other people happy and dressing a different way, or trying to make other people happy and taking a job and working in an environment that really isn't you, you're going to attract the wrong people towards you because you're not showing up as the real version of you. Mm-hmm. So it's really critical to show up as that real, flawed human that you are. And when you start doing that and remove the negative people like villains from your life, you'll see those people will start showing up organically for you.
No, that makes sense. And so your whole thing about this firing your villain, tell us about that story. You were at a job that you lost, and you then propelled into this kind of amazing new life that seems to be working out amazingly.
Yeah, for 20 plus years, I was in corporate America. I was leading sales teams. I was an equity partner. I was a VP of sales, EVP of sales, and ultimately a chief revenue officer responsible for hundreds of millions of dollars and thousands of employees. I was just named one of the most influential women in radio in 2017. And a month later, I was fired when the CEO I had worked for 14 years became ill. He elevated his daughter to replace him, and she was my number one villain. So the minute that she had the official title, she fired me immediately.
And I love that story that you had talked about kind of in your speeches that I've listened to, where they handed you two pieces of paper and they said, pick which one to sign. And you were such a badass and you were like, I didn't write these. No.
Yeah, well, I had seen that movie many times, right? So in corporate America, when you are at the C-suite level, whenever someone of significance from a leadership standpoint in a company is terminated, they always want you to sign a non-disclosure, non-disparaging agreement. And so what happens is there is an exchange of value. They want you to give up your rights to speak to what happened in the past. In lieu of, you'll receive a check. And I had been bullied by this woman for far too long, and had been working on building my confidence back up. And that's really the reason why I got fired, was I really started turning my light up. I started showing up as that more confident version of myself and leaning into my power. She hated that, basically threatened me and told me I had to stop it. I said, no, I'm not harming anyone. I'm not going to. And then she offered me two different pieces of paper, and I declined both because I knew if I was going to take that check, I was still letting this woman control me. I was still letting her, dictate my behaviors, my thoughts, and my actions. And at that point in time, I was 43 years old. I said, I'm just sick of this. This is ridiculous. It's gone on too long. I've let this go too far. I've allowed this to happen. And today's the day I'm going to take a different direction and just say no.
So what is your advice to dealing with bullies at work? Because especially
there's a couple different things, because one is an environment, and if you're in a toxic work environment, you need to get out of the company, right? And you can see that. Pick your head up and look beyond whatever situation. Maybe you have someone, a peer, bullying you at work, I don't know, but look beyond that. If the corporate culture is one of bullying, you will never escape it. You need to escape the company. So that's something that I I didn't think about at the time. And the company that I was in had become, it didn't start out that way when I got there, but as leadership changed, as the CEO position changed, the culture shifted, right? So what was allowed for shifted. And it happens in a quiet, subtle way. So you don't notice it overnight. But pretty soon, if you pick your head up, you start noticing, wow, that person's treating that person terribly. That person's talking to him. This one's bad. Why is this allowed to go on? Why is this person in a key position spinning up trouble for others? That doesn't make sense. And while I might have noticed it, I wasn't willing to act on it and say, I got to get out of here. This is not healthy. So that's the first thing, is noticing, is the company you're in a viable company that you ultimately want to stay in? And that can change over time.
Okay.
The flip side of that is you can be at a good company and just in a micro situation being bullied by one individual. Nobody knows about it. No one knows it's happening. Then it's on you to raise your hand first and foremost to the person and say, the way you're speaking to me does not work for me. If you'd like to work together moving forward, here's what I need from you, and explain to them, you can't call me dumb, or you can't, whatever the situation is, I don't know. But you have to communicate and say, this is not going to work. And then if the person says, I don't care what you say, you're not my boss, I'm going to keep acting like this, then it's on you to raise your hand to either your superior, your HR counterpoint, or whoever the next person is to go to say to the company, we've got a red flag here. We've got a problem. I tried to address it. Now I need you to step in and teach this person what's suitable behavior in the workplace.
That's very well said. So what about bullies in life?
I've dealt with this with my son in elementary school, right? And the thing is, we can't control people outside of us, but we can control our own behavior. So when my son was getting bullied at school, what we did was we put a new routine in place. And when he would wake up, we focused on, what 3 things are you grateful for today? And focus on gratitude. And then we would focus on, what are you looking forward to today? What one thing can you think of that you're excited about today? Because if you focus on all the negativity and focus on the bullies, you're just going to be mired down in that and negative and drowning in negativity. So I tried to shift him towards, what are you excited about? Whether it be a basketball game, whether it be, playing with friends, anything, just small things, and what you're grateful for, what you're looking forward to. And then we would get in the car and drive to school, and I would play his theme song. I'm trying to remember which one it was back then. He used to play the song Glorious that he loved, that was all about like the comeback and what was exciting happening and believing in yourself. So, creating routine of support, creating different levers that you can pull that can help you, and then ensuring, okay, you've got one great friend at school today that will be there no matter what. Where is Pablo going to be when you get to school? Why don't we line up with him in the morning? Why don't we hang with him this morning to get your day off to the right start, so you can feel supported and know? And then go through, who are the people you can reach out to for help today if things get bad? If that person decides to come up and try to create trouble for you, attack you, what are some of the things that you could do to be proactive, to take care of yourself? You can go to this person for help. You can go to this person for help. You can stand up for yourself. So, kind of rolling through, what are the potential scenarios? How can we take care of ourselves? We can't control that person or their behavior, but we
Yeah.
can be prepared.
No, that's great. And that's great parenting advice for any parents that are listening, to kind of build that confidence up. And I have friends that are very confident, very successful. And one of the things that I noticed that they have in common was that their mothers, in the mornings before they went to school, would tell them, you're amazing, you're so handsome, or you're so beautiful, you can do anything you want, you're amazing. And they became these very successful, confident human beings. And it's so important, if you're a parent, to kind of start that behavior so early. Because I think, when in our generation, when we were raised, it was more of kind of, don't be cocky, wasn't, you didn't hear much about confidence. I don't know if that was for you as well. Always put others before yourself. And that was the narrative then, where it's kind of changed, but I think it kind of impacted, our generations and younger generations
Absolutely.
as well. So what are your top tips to creating confidence?
I mean, everybody there, it's not a one pill wonder for everyone, right? People have different situations. But for me, number one, fire your villains. That's the most critical step
Mhm.
you can take. Number two, rewrite the narrative that you're telling yourself in your head. If you're putting yourself down, write down the things that you would say to someone you love and start reading that to yourself. Frequency sells, do it often. Step into fear. See fear as a green light that means go. The more often that you take steps into fear and move and take action, you're going to start building momentum, which will inevitably give you competence, which gives you confidence. Surround yourself with people that not only encourage you, but stretch you to move beyond where you currently are. Surround yourself with people who are living where you want to be so that you can start aspiring and hearing how they think and how they talk. Get out of a job if it's something you're not passionate about. Start doing your passion projects on the weekends or at night. Start tapping into what's unique, special, and different about you, not just your 9 to 5 job, to start feeling alive and excited about the things that you're doing.
Yeah. And so the confident people that you kind of have around you and yourself, like what are those key traits that you recognize in people that are highly confident?
Well, I think it's different for everyone, right? So, what I would say is, I've seen people who are CPAs and very successful, but not happy in their company, quit their job and get into art and start working in the art world and just come alive and be so excited and elated. Now, they're not making as much money maybe as they were over here, but you can see they're their most real, most powerful version of themselves. To me, that's true confidence, right? I think sometimes people see someone making a lot of money and say, oh, they've got a great suit on, they look like they're giving this great speech, they're super confident. That isn't always the case. Things aren't always the way they may appear on the outside. And I speak with experience to that. I was a person making a lot of money in corporate America giving the speeches, but I didn't feel my best because I was surrounded with a toxic environment with people putting me down, making disparaging remarks, and trying to hold me back. The minute I was gone from that situation and had fired my villain, amazing people started showing up, trying to help me, progress my dreams, trying to help me make it as an entrepreneur, trying to show up to support me. And in those moments, I really began to feel my most confident.
Yeah, I mean that's amazing because it's like you made it seem so easy, but yeah, it is really attracting. You kind of attract what you think about. So, believing in yourself and thinking about those things. So when it comes to business, if somebody either wants to start a business or get that dream job, but they feel they maybe just don't have the skill set, but they know they can learn when they get there, what's your advice for them to step into that interview and own it?
Always put yourself in any situation where you're selling, you want to put yourself in the shoes of the other person. Do your due diligence, research that person. Find out, people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Hmm.
Find a point of connection. Who do you know in common with that person? Show up with your testimonials of your work and how you'll run through walls for people and how you're loyal. Separate yourself from the mediocrity that's out there. Doesn't matter your experience necessarily, but really go to core values. I will outwork everyone. I bring energy and positivity. I'm trustworthy. Let me show you how I can demonstrate that. I'm loyal. I'm someone who's eager to learn and take on more work. Those are all attributes any company would love to have. So highlight what's unique, special, different about you, and own that and put yourself in that person's shoes and help them solve their problems, and they'll be offering you a job before you know it.
Excellent. I love that. And then what about confidence in relationships? Because that's a big area where people, I think, lack. Like for me, for example, I feel very confident in doing what I'm doing work wise. A lot of doors have opened. I'm able to build these great relationships, and I'm happy the way things are progressing. But when it comes to relationships, like with a partner, that's where I feel I'm missing confidence because it's like everything I've had hasn't worked out. So why would I do that again? It's like eating meatloaf and then puking your guts out that night from food poisoning. You're like, why the hell would I eat meatloaf again? I always used to joke about this in my comedy where I was like, why the hell would you do that again? Why do people keep putting themselves through that? But I guess love and alcohol are the two things that somehow, no matter how sick or hurt we get, we just keep going back to the same shit.
Well, when you become more self-aware and you step back and you can reflect on who you were and how you showed up in those situations, you can start to notice, okay, I see why that relationship didn't work out. But you know what? I see what it was. I was repeating a pattern that wasn't helpful. It was sabotaging me. I didn't know it at the time, but now that I'm outside of it, I can see why I picked that person. That wasn't the right person for me. more evolved, different person now. I'm more self-aware. So I know going forward, I can choose someone who is the right fit for me. Maybe I wasn't showing up as the person I really am. Maybe I was showing up as someone I thought they wanted me to be. Well, then of course it would never work because you weren't showing up as a real person that you are. Well, now today you can show up as that real person that you are, and you'll begin attracting those right people towards you, which will inevitably have a much better ending.
Right. And are you single, married?
I'm divorced.
You're divorced. Okay. Are you dating? Are you in the dating game right now?
Well, the pandemic has been very hard. I'm a
Yeah.
single mom with a 14-year-old. So he was home for essentially a year, and I really didn't want to get sick. So I kind of just put my personal life went on hold. I have a new book coming out with HarperCollins Leadership. I started teaching at Harvard. I had so many things going on from home for the last year. So I really dove in and made this my son, my core focus, and second to that, my business. And I'm pretty excited for my book is launching November 9th. I've really kind of gone all in on this, and I'm really excited for it.
Oh, I'm excited for you. What's the title of the book?
Overcome Your Villains.
Oh, I love it, because I think we all have villains. No matter who you are, you become, you can become a target if you don't have that confidence, and just really kind of getting rid of certain situations. But yeah, it was interesting. I was asking about the dating thing because it was kind of like, how do you get ready for dates? What's your mindset before you get, you go on a date? Do you feel nervous, or do you feel more like, well, it's my choice. It's all about me. So who cares? So that's how I'm.
I think what's important is what we just talked about is really being you, right? So
Yeah.
just be you and take the pressure off yourself. There's nothing to be nervous about. If the person doesn't like you, they weren't meant for you. So that's good. That's great news. It's sort of like getting fired. I wasn't right for that woman. I certainly wasn't right for that woman. She was threatened by me. We were never going to work together and see eye to eye. So that's a gift. You want someone to say, you're not for me. Thank you. I can move on to find that person that is for me. It's like a lock and key. There's billions of different people out there in the world. You don't just have to fixate on just one.
And when did you, yeah, that's great. And when did you write your first book? Because I know you have the confidence book that came out. Was that the first book?
Yeah, I was fired in 2017. Confidence Creator came out in 2018, and Overcome Your Villains is coming out in 2021.
That's amazing. So a lot of people might say, oh, I have an idea for a book, or I want to write a book and I just don't know where to start. How were you able to just put your focus down and do it?
I Googled how do you write a book, and I actually saved the paper. It says just write. So I figured, oh, you don't need to overcomplicate it. You just write. So I just wrote until I had a lot of writing done, sent it to an editor, hired the editor, and I had a book within a couple of months. It's really not that hard. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's not difficult, right? You just need to be disciplined to sit and write and have the courage to say, I'm going to pull the trigger and put this book out to the world.
That's great. Right. I think it's a lot of the things that get in our way is we do overcomplicate things instead of just being like, okay, it's a book, right? So how were you able to get to the editor? Do they just kind of openly take these submissions and read them?
No, so you hire an editor, you pay them. So I went online and I posted about I was looking for an editor. I interviewed a few different people. I found one I liked. I invested in myself. I paid him an amount of money to come on board and work with me. And together we brought the book to life.
That's amazing. And so you were able to then find a publisher? Like did you self-publish?
I self-published.
Okay. And how was that experience?
Great. It was fantastic. Very easy.
Oh, it was? And how did the book end up doing?
It went number one on Amazon, the business biography list. Donald Trump for number one, knocked him out of his number one spot. And yes, I kept a screenshot of that one.
Wow, that's great. Good for you. That's awesome. And so the other one is the next one with a publisher, or are you self-publishing that one as well?
My new book, Overcome Your Villains, is with HarperCollins Leadership, and that one comes out November 9th.
That's great. And so did you always want to go into this kind of self-help leadership role before you were fired? Or you fired?
No, I just always had been in, leading sales team, leading companies. That was really my niche and what I did. I never thought of doing anything other than that.
But now you probably can't imagine yourself doing anything else.
No, I can. Constant evolution, right? I didn't know I'd launch a podcast. I didn't know I'd give a TED Talk. I didn't know I'd start becoming a professional speaker. I just keep moving forward and testing and trying different things and seeing what works out. I tried to launch a skincare brand, that fell apart. I tried to launch a clothing line, that fell apart. So some things connect and work out great, like my speaking business or my podcast. and some things don't. I just keep moving forward and trying new and different things.
So when do you know, what's your advice of when to walk away if something's not working?
Oh, I mean, when something's costing you more money than the return, when you look at the ROI on any type of investment, whether that be business partnership, company, concept, anything, you'll see very quickly, you'll know I can't afford to keep leaning into this business. I don't see the return on it.
So I have to ask you though, because you have amazing skin and you wanted to start the skincare business. So if that didn't work, what are you using on your skin? Because it looks amazing. Go to the YouTube video and you can see your skin.
I'm big into Retin-A. I've been using Retin-A and medical grade products for years now.
Okay, so yeah, Retin-A. I just got a prescription from Retin-A. I always tell people, because sometimes you'll go to Sephora and then all these products will have Retin-A in them, but it's very important to obviously use things that don't counteract with those ingredients. And then I say, if you don't get it from a lab coat, it's not worth it. I feel like if you don't get it at Dwayne or at Walgreens, like it's probably not that effective. So get your dermatologist to write it. But what do you think the challenges were when that didn't go, and what did you learn from that?
I don't know that, people are always looking for some massive takeaway. I don't know that there was one. I just know as an entrepreneur, I'm a rookie, right? I started this whole thing a little over 3 years ago. I don't know what I'm doing. So one thing I understand, when you're a beginner, you're going to have to try and fail at different things and see what resonates and clicks. It really clicked for my speaking. It really clicked for my writing. It really clicked for my podcast. So I keep leaning into those things, and then I test and try different things on the side. If it clicks, great. If it doesn't, I know it's something else I tried. I can keep moving on.
So what do you think's next for you?
There's no way to know. I mean, things change so rapidly, right? I had no idea there was a pandemic coming and all of my speaking would disappear and go to the computer, right? I didn't know I'd reinvent myself as a virtual speaker. Well, now events are coming back and I'm starting to take stages again. So things are changing so rapidly. I don't think anyone can really predict what the next 12 months holds for them.
Yeah, that is true, right? We didn't know. It was kind of, especially with the pandemic, it was like, panic in the markets. And then, if you played your hand right, it ended up being a very good year for some people. But for most, not so much. So it's definitely all about kind of testing you of how you could evolve and kind of recreate yourself, which sounds like you nailed it. I know I never thought I'd be doing a podcast on Zoom. We used to be in a nice studio and we'd have everything kind of set up and the engineer in the back. But, I like Zoom because when I was in the studio, it was very limited to who I could interview because it had to be in New York City. Where now it's like, oh, this is great. I can talk to anyone. And so, but I never would have run a podcast on Zoom. Would you have? Like it would have been.
I didn't. I used to do in person. But again, it just goes back to we can't predict the future. So we just have to be ready to pivot and change to evolve with it.
Right, exactly. So what are your tips about procrastination? Like how to get out of that procrastination? If you have an idea that you want to push forward on, how do you stop delaying it and pick up the phone, so to say?
I mean, really, procrastination is about fear, right? So you're afraid that something's not going to work or afraid you're going to fail or afraid who knows what. Having someone hold you accountable for me is the number one way. When I wanted to write my second book and I couldn't bring myself to do it, I just posted on social media. I've got a new book coming out. I can't wait. It'll be out in 1 year. And I reverse engineer the pressure on myself so people start messaging me. What's going on with the new book? When are you getting it done? That's accountability for me to take action.
Okay, that's very well said. Yeah, and some people will do that. You'll see on social media when they're like quitting smoking or picking up exercise or, trying to eat healthier. So that is a good way. So what is your advice if somebody wanted to kind of start a business, but maybe they didn't have the resources, financial resources to do what needed to be done in order to do that? Let's say it's a new product and they really need to go to a patent attorney prior to going to either a lab or a manufacturer that's going to make the product to make sure they're protected. What would be your advice? What would you do?
I mean, you could ask someone close in your, network for money to, extend you a loan, or you could keep doing what you have to do until you can do what you want to do, which means keep working your 9 to 5, keep saving that money until you have enough money to do it on your own.
Very well said. And tell us about your podcast.
My podcast is Creating Confidence with Heather Monahan. It just turned 2 years old. I've had anyone from
Nice.
Gary Vaynerchuk on to Sarah Blakely to Mark Manson, Seth Godin, amazing guests each week. And then I do one episode interviewing someone and then one episode solo each week.
Okay. When you're doing the solo episodes, how do you find those more difficult to do because you're not bouncing off a guest?
No, that's the majority of my business is around my keynote speaking. So typically I'm on stage alone speaking or, in my living room speaking by myself. So that's really pretty easy for me. So I'll teach something. Last week I taught how to ask for what you want and get it. This week I taught how to land a spot as a guest on a podcast. I'm always just going through basically answering the questions that different people are asking me on DMs on social media.
Oh, that's great. And so you are a public speaker, and obviously you have to be confident usually to be able to be a very successful public speaker, at least to enjoy it and have that energy to come through. A lot of people are afraid of public speaking. What are some things that you could give advice on to help get over that fear, or at least get through that public speech they have to do?
Start with baby steps, right? So you want to raise your hand in a meeting and answer a question, and it all starts there. Go into Starbucks and yell out your order from afar. Start doing small things that show you, oh, I can do this. I felt uncomfortable, but I lived through it. Then start practicing, right? Practicing will overcome the majority of issues for you. Practice in front of your family, practice in front of your friends, practice in front of a camera, record yourself, see what you're seeing. Go and watch other people do it and say, hey, I like that. I like when they do this. I'm going to emulate that in my speech. But the more work you put in and the more practice you put in, the better you're going to feel and be when you get up there.
What was one of your favorite public speeches that you gave, or your talks?
Oh, I love my TEDx talk. I'm so proud of that talk. It's such, it was so powerful, and it's such a topic that needs to be addressed that people don't like to address.
And that was that the confidence one? I saw some of it on your website.
That's the talk I did was the Me Too movement, misstep or mistake. And it's really all about how the Me Too movement stopped at analyzing men harassing women, but never took a look at the bigger problem, which is women harassing women in corporate America.
What do you think that is? That women are so hard
insecurity. It's definitely insecurity. People that are afraid that if somebody else succeeds, they're going to take their place, or that somebody else is better than them.
Yeah, and I think it's because you don't see men acting like bullies necessarily to other men. Like there always seems to be, because they have this thing in our culture that was kind of, there's always a seat at the table for you. But when women became more of the dominant workforce, it's kind of like the men almost pinned the women against the women. Well, there's only a certain number of spots for you guys. So
I don't think men needed to do it. I think women were happy to pin against other women. They didn't need the push to do it.
So how do we stop that? How do we change?
Calling out bad behavior? Fundamentally, if people start saying, you know what you're doing to that woman over there is not okay. I see how you look at her. I see how you put her down. Being a champion in moments when no one's really paying attention, that's how you stop it. Because when it actually becomes embarrassing for a woman to be making disparaging comments and looks at other women will stop.
Yeah, because it is interesting. Because I've been in corporate jobs before where there was a woman that made me feel insecure, made me feel bad about myself, and kind of prevented me sometimes when I was younger from kind of stepping up into my true self, and I hated that. And you sometimes would think, I know it was at my first job when I was working in finance, you would think, well, if I just got a different job, it would go away. No, it wouldn't, because there'd be another bully there. So then it's just kind of getting into that, not giving a crap what people think about you. And so I want to ask you how are you able to not worry about what people think about you? Because I think when you don't give a fuck, pardon my language, what people think about you, you have true power, untouchable power.
Well, here's the thing, and you just need to ask yourself this question: do they really know you, and do they really know what's going on in your life? No, they don't, right? Even people that know you at work don't really know what's going on in your life. You're not sharing 100% of yourself everywhere you go. So you have to take everything with a grain of salt. If someone says, you know what, that woman's a terrible mother, she's never with her son, I always see her at work. They don't really see you outside of work, so they have no idea. So just let it roll off your back the same way that, I don't want to judge somebody else. I have no idea what's going on in their life. I have no idea if their parents are dying or if they have an illness they're dealing with. Who am I to judge them? We're all on equal footing here. Everyone's got a tough road ahead of them. So, I make it a lot more about hurt people hurt people. So if somebody's attacking me or, being negative, it's because I'm different and unique. And there's something about that that makes them feel jealous or uncomfortable or upset. And I feel bad for them, frankly.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's perfectly said. But yeah, I think it's just remembering when somebody's mean to you, usually it has nothing to do with you necessarily. It just has maybe you look like somebody. I was in New York one time, and the guy, not realizing that I was a comedian, could snap back very quickly. Just a random guy walking down the street, and it was the funniest story. In a suit, seemed like a nice, successful guy. He walks right past me, and he just turns and goes, "Bitch." And I turned around and I said, "Oh, I must look like your ex-wife," and just kept walking. And it was such that moment where I was like, I just zinged him. It was just this glorified, like, yes, but it had nothing to do with me. I was just walking down the street, and I'm like, well, I guess I got a bitchy face, especially in sunglasses. People don't look very nice in sunglasses because you can't see their eyes necessarily, and especially me. But yeah, I probably reminded him of somebody that really screwed him over. And
Probably so. It had nothing to do with you.
yeah, and I knew it at that point. Had that happened 5 years earlier, I probably would have gone back and been like, "Is there something wrong with me?" Like, how do you do this? But so let's move on to your teaching at Harvard. Tell us about that program, and can anyone kind of enroll in it, or is it for the students? Like, what's that all about?
Yeah, it's for students, so you'd have to apply to Harvard. But I'm teaching professional selling and sales leadership with John Westman, who's the actual lead professor on the class who brought me in. And we've been working together since January 3rd this year. And it's been a great experience.
So what are some of the tips that you're going to kind of be teaching, if you can share those with the students?
So it's all around sales and sales leadership. So we look at everything from sales tactics, sales strategies, pipelines, recruiting, retaining employees, leadership qualities, elevating your team, competition in the workplace, closing strategies, how to identify prospects. It's a really full sales and sales leadership course.
That's great. Because the thing is, even if you're not in a sales role, you're constantly selling, because first and foremost, you're selling yourself. But it's also, I think, probably believing in the product that you're selling. It'd probably be pretty hard for me to sell lawnmowers. I don't mow lawns. I don't like mowing. I don't want to learn how to mow a lawn. So I'm like, why would I sell that? So it's always kind of finding that. But what is the best way to what would be your advice to close a sale?
Well, closing a sale shouldn't be difficult if you've been asking the right questions and engaging the person, understanding what their challenges are, what problem they're trying to solve along the way, and identifying if you have the ultimate decision maker. So all of those things should be done ahead of time. So if you have done those things correctly, if you have asked the right questions, and if you have aligned your product to solve their problem, it's usually pretty easy to close. Okay.
Well, that's good. And when does this course start? In the fall?
That course runs January through June each year.
January. Okay, got. And so are you going to be up in Boston, or are you going to be virtually doing this?
So it was virtual this past year, and it looks like it's going to be virtual next year too.
Oh, so that's great. So you can stay in sunny Florida and not have to freeze your butt off in Boston. I do love, well, I guess around May it starts to get nice up there. Sometimes in April when you get the trees and things like that. So one of the things when I was watching one of your videos is you talked about creating an ad campaign for your life. So tell us more about this and how people that are listening can do the same.
Yeah, my background in sales and sales leadership was in the advertising world, in media. And so I read countless white papers and did unbelievable amounts of case studies with clients on what was most effective for advertising. And so ultimately it boils down to this, that you need to have an ad campaign and pick one platform that you're going to run it on. I picked my Mind because that was free of charge. You run messaging frequently because frequency is what sells. So if you hear a message many, many times over, you start to believe it and it's embedded in your subconscious. So whatever powerful messaging you're going to use for yourself, I am confident, I am creative, I am enough, whatever it is that you want your own mind to take hold of and own, Write those things down and say it 7 times a day. That's typically the frequency most advertisers utilize. You want to use an image because audio is great, but coupled with a visual image is even more powerful. So find a picture of yourself when you were really confident. Find a picture of yourself when you were winning and doing well at something, and really look at that image while you repeat the powerful messaging to yourself. Then you want to use a jingle or some type of a music bed, a song, to elicit emotion and memory to really ingrain this powerful moment with you. I love Kendrick Lamar. I love myself, but pick whatever song that is going to help you say, okay, this is my power moment, and play that song while you're running the tape, while you're saying these powerful affirmations, while you're looking at this image. And then every great ad campaign has a call to action, which means you're asking someone to do something. For me, I said fear is a green light that means go, and go faster. The minute I feel fear, it's time for me to take action.
That's amazing, because fear stops so many people right in their tracks. And that's kind of what kills people. But you are saying, no, fear is a good thing, because that means you need to take action. That's your body telling you, or your mind telling you, like, it's time to kind of move on something. So another thing is that you always hear with people that are very successful, that people highlight is their morning routine, because how you start your day can determine how the day goes. So what is your morning routine?
I don't subscribe to that school of thought. I've definitely gotten more into routine is the enemy, right? So I see routines oftentimes as a rut. People start just doing the same thing over and over again, and they're not growing. That's definitely what happened for me when I was back in corporate America. So I like to change things up. I just added boxing as my new workout, which is so scary and so hard. And I'm a beginner, and I'm with all of these people that are not like me. And I'm the person that looks different, but I'm growing, because every time I show up in there, I'm really bad and I'm learning, and I feel really proud when I leave. So I sort of look at that different way of flipping it, that routine is the enemy, and it's on me to mix things up. It's on me to say, what am I going for today? How am I going to make this a priority? How am I going to make this happen? How am I going to evolve? How am I going to change? And how am I going to grow?
Okay, that's very well said. Because some people say, okay, I get up at this same time every day. I shower, brush my teeth, get my coffee, read the paper, and then get to work. But I guess it is, you can allow yourself to kind of change it, because each day is a little bit different. So are you into meditation at all?
I definitely have meditated at different times in my life. It just really depends what's going on with me. Working out for me is somewhat of like a meditation. If I'm running, I definitely get my best ideas doing that. So yoga can do that for me, right? Spinning, it really just depends what's going on and what I'm doing in my life. But I totally believe in meditation.
Okay, yeah. I always had trouble meditating because I just somehow couldn't kind of turn the noise fully off. Not that it was all bad noise, but then I just would to practice on like breathing exercises. So I'm like, you know what, I'm going to create like a non-meditation meditation. You can still get the benefits, but I think so many people maybe get stressed out because they're like, but I had a thought come in. I can't turn my brain off. It like always works all the time. So yeah, it is interesting. And obviously a healthy diet, because that makes such a difference in like your mindset and your confidence and
Yeah,
things.
absolutely. Taking care of yourself is so important.
Yes, absolutely. Are there any vitamins or supplements that you would recommend to people, like as far as, for brain function and things of that sort that kind of helps with the whole success puzzle?
No, I'm not. I definitely am not, trained in medicine or what people should be eating. So I do not want to advise on that at all.
I didn't know if you were like for me, for example, it's like, oh, when I take zinc, I feel if I'm lacking in zinc, I feel less happy. I feel more anxious, and I sometimes can get sad, or things will bother me. But if I have the zinc, I seem to be fine sometimes. So I didn't know if you had like something you were like, oh, you should definitely always take this and whatnot. So tell us before we wrap up where people can find you. And again, this will all be on the website, so you guys can go there for more easy way in case you forgot or you're listening in your car.
My website is heathermonahan.com. I'm on all social media at Heather Monahan. My book is Confidence Creator. My new book is Overcome Your Villains, and my podcast is Creating Confidence.
I love it. Well, this has been great, Heather. Thank you so much for your time. I know we've been trying to get this on the calendar forever, and I follow you on social media, and I'm like, I just love all your stuff that you post. And I said, you know what? I got to ask her again. I got to get her on the show. And I'm so honored and excited that you were here.
Well, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you. And thank you everybody for listening. And we'll see you next time to find out who's next.
Hey, your host here, Madison Malloy. Please make sure to subscribe to the show on all podcast platforms, and please rate and review us on iTunes and Spotify. Also, if you have any questions or comments, you can email us at contact@next2madison.com. I thank you again for listening. Bye.